From weddings to wildlife photography, I never thought the two would mix, but you will not believe how similar they are. I'm Vanessa Joy, Canon Explorer of Light, and I've been photographing weddings for well over 20 years. Until recently, I took a trip to Kenya, Africa in the Masai Mara area and had an absolute blast. I really was intimidated just a little bit by photographing something completely new and with a bunch of professional photographers that knew what they were doing, but I was pleasantly surprised that wedding photography really helped me photograph wildlife in a bunch of ways that I didn't even think of before. Plus, the gear that I was using really translated seamlessly, and I found a new lens to buy. So let me tell you all about it. Let me give you a little background about weddings and what I photograph weddings with. I'm using the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1, two top-of-the-line Canon cameras that I absolutely adore for a variety of reasons. The EOS R5 Mark II, I really love 45 megapixels. I love being able to do an internal crop, and of course, the fast focusing, low light performance is an absolute must for wedding photographers. Now, the Canon EOS R1, a lot of people would think, whoa, that's overkill for weddings. And you know what? You may be right. But I've always loved the feel of, one, owning a flagship camera from Canon, but also that embedded vertical grip, which just feels good in my hands. Plus, you really cannot beat that fast autofocusing performance. I mean, between the two cameras, I barely have to think about focusing anymore. They just are so good. Not to mention, I can register faces in both of them. So those two cameras, those are my cameras, and those are the ones I decided to photograph and use during the safari. They performed seamlessly. Of course, both of them have animal eye focus, which is something I have never set my camera to, but I didn't know how. Having gone in there before to set the detection to people, I easily set it to animal, and both cameras did an amazing job tracking fast-moving animals like cheetahs and even keeping track of them when they were going behind the brush. It was probably the biggest flex I have ever seen from a camera when it comes to autofocus. Now, both of these cameras have pre-shooting, which is definitely something I had never tried before. I mean, sure, there are some moments in weddings where it happens fast, but really for the most part, pre-shooting is not something I would use, and I really only stay on one shot. I don't even go into continuous shutter at all. But if I'm photographing wildlife running across the plain, then I am going to want to shoot maybe continuous, low speed continuous, high speed continuous. I didn't go super fast because I didn't want to overload my memory card. Not that it would overload it, but I really just didn't want that many pictures to sort through later. That's what it comes down to. I'm a wedding photographer and I know what it's like to have too many images coming back from a project, and I didn't want that to happen coming back from safari. Pre-shooting, however, that is a must-have if you are photographing birds specifically. When I'm locking on to a bird on a perch, just waiting for it to take flight, I would try to catch it, but undoubtedly I missed it pretty much every single time. But pre-shooting, because it's capturing a little bit before I actually press the shutter, it saved me every time, and I was able to get these shots of the birds coming off the perch perfectly, and I never would have been able to do that before. So that's where the camera bodies were perfect in my transitioning from weddings to wildlife. It was something that I was excited to do, but I also felt really prepared. Photographing weddings for the past 2 decades has really allowed me to anticipate moments, to be able to capture action as it happens. Now, of course, I'm capturing human interaction and I'm used to that. I don't really know much about wildlife, but I was really excited to give it a try, and that unpredictability that happens in wildlife, I really was used to with my background in weddings. Now let's talk a little bit about the lenses. The Canon RF 28-70 f2L USM lens is on my camera, I don't know, 85 to 95% of the time. It's just that one lens to rule them all. It's perfect for documentary photography, portrait photography, weddings. So naturally, I brought that on safari. Now, I used it every once in a while, but believe it or not, the lens that I didn't think I would bring, but I'm really glad I did, is the Canon RF 85mm 1.2L USM lens. This is a beautiful portrait lens, but I had no idea that it would serve me so well in wildlife photography. With that lens capturing landscapes, was surprisingly easy, and then capturing elephants was where this lens just shone. Individual shots of elephants as well as more landscape versions. I really had a blast using this lens, getting crisp, clean imagery of my subject and then a beautifully blurred background. I mean, overall, I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it was for me to transition from weddings to wildlife. What really surprised me the most is how natural it felt to photograph wildlife even though I was in completely new territory. The lens, that's a brand new lens that I had never used at a wedding that I borrowed first to use on safari, was the Canon RF 100-300 2.8L IS USM lens. That lens, it's a beast. Now, I had used it before to photograph golf, and I thought, you know what, I needed to have some kind of longer zoom and wanted to have it at that 2.8 fixed aperture. That lens performed absolutely beautifully, and I used it both with and without a 1.4 extender, which let the lens zoom all the way into 420 millimeters and then made my lowest aperture f4, which when you're outside on a sunny day, f4 is absolutely nothing. I'm still able to zoom in where I want to be, get that shot, and still separate my subject from the background. What actually ended up happening, because I borrowed that lens for the wildlife photography, I had a wedding just a week after I came back from Kenya, and I brought the 1-300 to that wedding, and it sold me. I ended up buying it. It's a beautiful lens for weddings as well. So it was really fun photographing wildlife, something I had never photographed before, and then letting that teach me something about weddings that I hadn't tried. Now that 1-300, although it's heavy, it's just glued at my hip at weddings. It's so great for capturing moments across the dance floor during the ceremony, so I'm not obtrusive and I can really just hang back and make sure I'm not in the way of any guests. Now, I am only a wedding photographer, not a videographer, but I am known to play with video every once in a while. So when I was on safari, this was no exception. I did shoot just a little bit of video that you can see here. That's one of the nice things about both of these cameras, and really any camera in the Canon mirrorless line, is that shooting video is so simple. With the R5 Mark II, it's just a separate button there. You can switch over to video mode if you want to. I found that I would keep it in photo mode, and then if I saw a moment where I wanted to film, I would just hit that record button, easy peasy. And a lot of times I wanted to switch to video when there was cute motion going along, or I wanted to capture the audio of, say, these little lion cubs. I was surprised at how much my wedding experience came into play when photographing wildlife for the very first time. I'm pretty proud of what I did and my instincts that were naturally there from having shot weddings for so long. I mean, the fast decision making, quick reflex, and ability to adapt to whatever was going on all came into play. Plus, knowing my gear like the back of my hand is always really beneficial, whether I'm trying to photograph a fast flower girl running or a cheetah across the plains. So to wrap it up, that is my experience with wildlife photography, coming from a background of weddings, and the Canon EOS R5 Mark II along with the Canon EOS R1 are still my cameras of choice for either one of those genres, and I'm really happy at how easily I was able to switch genres with those cameras and then bring lenses that I knew as well as new ones that I discovered and then brought back to weddings. And thank you so much, Canon, for helping me and supporting me on this journey. I'm delighted to share my story with all of you here on Canon's YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Let me know if you've ever done that, ever changed genres and learned something new, shooting something that you've never photographed before. I'm Canon Explorer of Light, Vanessa Joy. I'll see you next time.